USA. Now, let me present the first table, which goes on about blockchain. This table will be presented and moderated by Patrick Duffy, president of BETA, which is Blockchain in Transport Alliance, a standards and advocacy organization to help educate, advocate, and establish standards for blockchain application in the transportation industry. So, Patrick, here you are. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good morning, Pilar. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited about being here. So thanks, everyone. The way that this is going to work is I've got 5 minutes to intro a topic, and then we're going to hear from 3 professionals that are operating within this space. We're going to keep the schedule tight. Each presenter has 5 minutes to present on their enterprise and what they are doing within this sector. And then we're going to host a 20-minute panel where we field some questions. There is an opportunity to provide your questions in the comments box. So please feel free to introduce the topics that are most interesting to you in your space. So without further ado, let's get started. As Pilar mentioned, I'm Patrick Duffy. I'm the president of the Blockchain and Transport Alliance. We are a global organization that started in 2017 that was really focused on the over-the-road trucking space at the time, trying to address the highly fragmented nature of that sector and the way that information flows between participants and the very different ways that certain enterprises within that sector operate. Everything from pen and paper processes and still fax machines, all the way up to large enterprises that have data science teams approaching 100 people. So it's a huge and varied space that really drives commerce. And so BITA quickly gained the attention of executives and participants from every other transport mode. And so BITA quickly grew into one of the largest alliances globally that was looking at leveraging next generation technology, including distributed ledger technology like blockchain, about how to leverage this new technology to drive efficiencies around trade. So, you know, who's really moving the needle forward? I think a lot of people have experienced some heartburn associated to their exploration of this technology. There was obviously the massive excitement and hype cycle leading up through the 2017 ICO boom. And the ICO boom also brought about some really exciting new business models that were being developed. Along with that experimentation also come failures. And I think that we're really moving into a new era of exploration of this technology beyond research and internal pilots and small networks of stakeholders as we approach enterprise grade and ecosystem level projects. I think everyone within this audience in particular would be familiar with the TradeLens project and what that's doing within the global ocean containerized supply chain. But we're seeing these types of projects permeate throughout different layers of commerce now, whether we're talking about regulatory aspects, or we're talking about trade finance, or we're talking about the interactions between ocean carriers, port communities, drayage providers. It waterfalls throughout the entire system. And that's what I think is the promise of leveraging this type of technology. But it certainly comes with a learning curve and the need for the modification of existing processes and practices, not only within your own 4 walls, but really in a macro and global level sense. So I'm really excited about some of the developments we're seeing. And I'm looking forward to exploring the technology within this panel coming up. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, I've actually had the opportunity to host and interact with all of our panelists this morning for the blockchain table. Our first is Isaac Kunkel. Isaac is a senior vice president at Chainyard, who is responsible for their blockchain consulting services and helps facilitate enterprises' efforts to turn blockchain into business value. Chainyard, for those not familiar, is a leader in developing blockchain-based solutions for enterprises. Chainyard helps to accelerate the blockchain infrastructure, the middleware, and the decentralized applications that enterprises need to leverage to really make this a fruitful endeavor. And so Chainyard works with multiple blockchain technologies, but has a specific focus on the Hyperledger Fabric ecosystem. And so really excited to talk with Isaac and beyond just what we're talking about within the maritime space, their work is really doing some impressive things. We recently rolled out with IBM the Trust Your Supplier network, which leverages blockchain technology to really transform supplier relationships by providing advanced insights, accelerated onboarding, and trusted exchanges of information between partners. So without further ado, Isaac, I've got to be strict on the clock, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and then we're going to move forward with Jordan. So take it away.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for that nice introduction. I will try to give you a couple minutes back. I will share with the audience that I've got a deck here, but I'm going to skip over a lot of it, but I'm happy to share with you afterwards. Patrick already introduced Chainyard. We're a technology company helping enterprises to move their digital transformation efforts forward, specific focus on decentralized ecosystems. Patrick noted that we are members of the Linux Foundation, and we are active members of both the Hyperledger and OpenIDL projects. OpenIDL was announced last week, and it's similar to many other initiatives, but it's open source and is focused on property and casualty insurance area, specifically with facilitating regulatory reporting. It's a very innovative and unique project that is being open sourced with the key member of American Association for Insurance Services. A little bit about Chainyard. We are part of a bigger company, IT People Corporation, and we are basically the arm that delivers solutions and does advisory, engineering, operations, and we do help with consortium building as well for companies who are trying to figure out how to get started. IT People focuses on our workforce solutions area. That's the root of the company, where it started in '99 during the Y2K work. And then Trust Your Supplier. Patrick did a nice job of introducing that, and that's what I'm going to focus on today. Trust Your Supplier was rolled out in August of 2019 into production. Today, I'm happy to say we have a healthy network that's growing, and we're working to grow that network every day, and I'll give you a little bit more information about it here. So it's focused on transforming the supplier information management aspects of supply chain. This focuses on not only the logistics industry, but really it's industry agnostic. It's all supply chains and all companies who deal with outside companies, which is virtually every company in the world. And it focuses on managing the information and accelerating the onboarding process. I'm happy to say that Trust Your Supplier did win an award last year from the Blockchain Research Institute. We won the Entrepreneurial Innovation Award in supply chain. Just real quickly, what pain points are we trying to solve? We're trying to solve manual work associated with redundancy, the qualification process. Obviously, like all good solutions, we're focused on reducing or eliminating operational expenses as possible. But more importantly, we are trying to ensure that there's business value for all of the participants in our Trust Your Supplier ecosystem. One other pain point that isn't really noted here is that a lot of companies are still doing supplier information management as a manual process. They initiate that usually through email with spreadsheets and Word documents. And so I'm happy to say that Trust Your Supplier is a way to digitize that process and modernize it to make it easier going forward. So who are the participants in the Trust Your Supplier network? Well, we obviously have the suppliers, and we are lucky enough to have more than 30 Fortune 500 suppliers in our network. The buyers, I'm sorry, suppliers, we have 4,000 plus suppliers in our network. The buyers, that's where we have 30 plus Fortune 500 companies in the network. And they also, members of the supplier and buyer aspects, help manage the ecosystem and through a governance committee. And that's how we decentralize a trusted supplier network. Maybe most importantly is our verifier and certificate issuers. They help bring trust into the network. Today, buyers are working with these verifiers already. We've brought in a new business model for the verifiers to work directly with suppliers, so suppliers can bring certified digital credentials into that transaction to facilitate the onboarding. We also see, as we continue to expand looking forward, auditors and additional business networks being part of Trusted Supplier. We have about 5 networks today. We don't have any auditors specifically working directly with us. And then we also have a marketplace for third-party developers to work within this ecosystem to bring value-added offerings today focused around that onboarding process into the network. And we have more than a dozen that already have applications built, and we have really a lineup of others who are interested in bringing their solutions into it. So one of the questions we get a lot is why blockchain? And I'm sure you'll hear that, as you move forward. But we certainly could have done this as a centrally controlled solution, but then we wouldn't really be doing anything that's different than what's out there today. And so what we wanted to do was leverage the characteristics of blockchain and some of the key ones you noted here: encryption, consensus, immutability, to create trust in this new network. But maybe more importantly is now we've given the control of the underlying data that's being put into the network to the owners of that data. So suppliers own their own digital credentials, or what we call a digital passport, and buyers own their own data. And suppliers get to decide if they want to be discovered by other buyers or not, and they decide which information about their company they're going to share with the buyers and others in the network. There are certain controls around, like buyer-supplier private questions, where a buyer may have a company-specific questions that can't be secured. And so we're leveraging blockchain capabilities to enable all of that privacy and the right controls on the data. So we felt that blockchain was I apologize for that. We felt that blockchain brought these new characteristics that enabled this, and that was where the value of using blockchain for this network came from. Benefits. Obviously, having updated and timely data is always important. So we found that having this data available in real time both helped accelerate the onboarding process, but maybe more importantly, if you look at the life cycle of a supplier, it also helps us to automate a lot of the touch points that a supplier or a buyer would typically do with a supplier, whether that be quarterly, semi-annually, or annually renewals and verifications. And so we're using AI capabilities to help automate the process, but also help with the reminders. And then when data is changed in the system, for example, if a supplier changes a country of origin or where they're headquartered, we can notify the buyers and make sure that they can see that that doesn't now impact that relationship. And maybe most notably, help them to better manage risk within their supply chain. And that's one of the major advantages of this to both buyers and suppliers. So reducing costs, speeding up onboarding, all good for the buyers. What do the suppliers get out of it? They get reduced work because now they have this digital passport. They get to share it. They can onboard in as few as a couple hours, whereas sometimes things used to take 60 days. We can't tell you where it's going to fall because every company has different qualification processes, but we have seen that metric come down, and we've seen up to 75% average reduction in onboarding, which is a benefit to suppliers because they now are getting that first revenue with the buyer quicker. And now they also have a new marketplace for their own supplies or their own wares, and they can, if they choose to be discovered by new buyers in the network. So today, TYS is in production, 30 plus global Fortune 500 buyers. It is available in 70 countries with localization and language support. And we're constantly onboarding new buyers and suppliers in the network, as well as third-party verifiers. And I just want to end on this slide by showing you that we have a nice mix of companies representing, mostly global companies representing many industries. And this was a strategy to go wide on industries and try to work on creating standards for what that supplier information management and onboarding process looks like across these industries. And I thank all of our governance board members who are active participants in helping us to drive this solution forward and making it what it is today. All right, that's all I have for now, Patrick. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Isaac. I think this slide in particular is indicative of the movement towards ecosystem level projects. You called out 70 different countries being represented, and the names of the companies across those slides. Those are the companies that not only live in our homes, but also provide those things that end up being delivered to our homes, oftentimes multiple times a day now. So without further ado, we're going to introduce Jordan Sorenson. Jordan's the co-founder and CTO of ChainGo Tech and a blockchain and big data enthusiast. Jordan went to IE Business School, where he actually met his future co-founder, Andreas, and eventually started ChainGo Tech. And while the company is based in Spain, Jordan's basically been back in Virginia helping to promote the entry into the US market for the company. Really excited to have Jordan with us today, and so much thanks to Jordan and the ChainGo team for putting together this awesome event. As Pilar mentioned, ChainGo Tech is a startup that really is aiming to solve the documentation delays and other associated problems around the digitization of documentation that is all around trade and the verified transactions of those documents that needs to happen to facilitate trade. So Jordan, take it away. You got 5 minutes.
Perfect. Hey, I appreciate it. No, it's great to be here with everybody. Really excited to see this kind of entire event unfold. And as Patrick was talking, here at ChainGo Tech, we're really focused on very isolated issues inside of global supply chain and through the shipping process itself. So brief overview of the company. As was stated, we started at IE Business School, and everything's kind of evolved out from there. Now we're about 4 years existing as a company and thriving and scaling where we currently are. We have current clients and use cases in a variety of different areas inside of different aspects of supply chain and logistics, with our overall goal really providing solutions to the logistic industry that are combining the digitization of kind of the future and blockchain technology to really further that digitization process. We found quite a few people in the process itself. Stage 1 is digitizing a kind of antiquated shipping and global trade process and taking it kind of to that new century that we're really in. Now, some of the reasons that we've particularly identified this area is looking through a traditional route of shipping. You go from point A all the way to point B, and we've identified several very clear breaking points where there just tends to be more and more issues with documentation or with data being incorrect or human error or whatever it might be. And all of these issues lead to costs, directly to economic impact for shippers and for exporters, importers, and people involved in the process. In fact, so much so that oftentimes these costs are kind of baked into the cake. You go into it knowing, okay, we're probably going to have to spend a little bit extra per container for assumed errors in the process. And we identified that quickly as something that we can solve and help, particularly with ChainGo Freight itself. Now, ChainGo Freight is a specific product inside of the ChainGo platform. And ChainGo Freight's a standalone web platform with complete end-to-end cargo management focused on the electronic documentation, signing documents, track and trace, having that full blockchain auditing behind the scenes, so we're sure that documents are the original authentic document and being signed and tracked properly. It's a collaborative platform, and where we have quite a few clients existing today, and seeing a great efficiency in that process. Additionally, we have customized platforms that are tailored specifically to the needs of individual clients and their unique use cases or business practices. And then as well, we offer integrated services directly into the existing web platforms that are out there. Now, why blockchain technology? And to mirror some of what Isaac said, this is such a good question, because in 2017 in particular, it was kind of a technology that came out that was so exciting. It was almost, hey, we got this great technology, let's go find a problem to throw at it. And that it worked to really explore and find a lot of things that were great, and maybe some things that didn't actually need that technology itself to operate at full functionality. And we've really tried to flip that script and find the problems in the industry and find the right technological solution. In this case, oftentimes we find to be blockchain. And the main reason, the number one reason, although there are others outside of this for sure, that we look at blockchain technology is providing not just the verified transactions, transparency, and timestamped events, but to ultimately bring us to immutability. Our clients want to know that the information that they're putting into the process, whether that be data or whether that be documentation, is the original, authentic, unmodified. They can trust that this is the document as it was intended to be. That immutable side of it is the core competency that our clients are looking for. Now, for that, Chango Freight itself is aimed at being an agnostic solution that we adjust with the needs of our clients themselves, operating inside of the Hyperledger sector, or we can do Ethereum or the many forks of Ethereum using kind of that same code base itself, side chains and different specific blockchain solutions to meet the needs of our individual clients themselves. Now, the functionalities of our platform itself is obviously blockchain, which I've already spoken about, process automation, a full API suite to operate inside of the platform, as well as integrate into other services. OCR document processing we found to be extremely useful when helping to eliminate human error in the process, and ERP integrations for various systems out there. Now, specific use cases that we've worked on, freight forwarder that we've worked with from the beginning, pretty much. Codex Logistics went from 8 orders per employee that they could process to 18 orders per employee. You saw a vast increase in their efficiency in the entire process itself. And then with an international exporter, Mau San Miguel, one of the largest exporters from Spain, had a total lead time in their process from 1 week cut down to less than a day, working through our platform itself and the ways that we can really speed up with the process automation and being able to collaborate more efficiently with the people involved. We've done additional use cases for more of the customized solutions for individual shipper through Volans, manufacturer, Athedinox, and then supplier in Tonewoods, each one with its unique aspects and full branding for those companies, kind of a unique standalone platform for them that they're already seeing success in improving their entire process through. Now, just to wrap things up here, the company itself started out with just Andres, myself, and Pilar, and we've grown to a full team, and we are in the process of, we just finished closing a seed round of funding. We are scaling from here. As was previously mentioned, the company is founded in Madrid, where we both went to business school, Andres and I, and then I've moved to the United States. I'm obviously from the United States, and but a big portion of that is to start the market entry into the U.S. side of things. We've been a member of the Virginia Maritime Association for some time now, as well as BIDA and other organizations, and starting to promote what it is that we can offer to this industry right now at this time. So this is a bit about ourselves as a company, a bit about myself. I'm looking forward to the panel discussion. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks so much, Jordan. Really excited to see the company develop. Excitingly, I know you guys just recently closed a seed round, so I'm excited to see how the company continues to grow and push these products out into the marketplace. Coming up now is one of my favorite people within this sector. I am consistently impressed and excited by the innovation and insights from almost every conversation myself and Rajat have. Rajat's the co-founder of DexFreight, where he helps lead the development of machine learning tools, a decentralized logistics protocol, and other special projects. Rajat's also been Rajat and the DexFreight team have been meaningful contributors to the BITA standards development efforts. DexFreight was one of the first companies to actually leverage our first standard around location within their work. And Rajat also helps to lead some very exciting projects over at MOBI, the Mobility Open Blockchain Initiative, where he has helped to really push forward specifications around vehicle identity, which is kind of like a birth certificate for an asset, which I think has implications well beyond just the automotive space, and also their supply chain working group. Rajat comes to this with more than a decade of experience as a research scientist, and also holds a doctorate degree in transportation. So he knows what he's talking about. And so I'm really excited to have you here, Rajat. Let's start the clock and share your insights. Rajat, it looks like you're on mute. If you can.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was on mute.
There we go.
Thank you for the intro, Patrick. Yeah, you're one of my favorite people to work with as well. So it goes both ways. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present today. And happy to be here. So I'm going to share my screen. We're DexFreight, and we've founded the company around 2018. As a way to leverage the blockchain technology in logistics, mostly ground freight, to improve the workflow of brokers, shippers, and carriers with regards to movement of ground shipment and raise. So our mission is to simplify logistics with a decentralized fintech-enabled market network for freight companies. DexFreight essentially is a marketplace as well as a middleware for brokers, shippers, and carriers with their ERP and TMS systems. We have a unique blend of expertise in the team. We have people who have spent 30-something years in logistics sector and technology development, as well as blockchain protocols and DeFi. So essentially, DexFreight Inc. has a couple of tools that we've developed over the past couple of years. The first one is the marketplace and middleware. It's a standalone web app and a middleware for brokers and carriers, providing cross-company workflow automation and settlement layer. So that's where we use smart contract. I'll talk about that.
I don't mean to interrupt. Actually, I do mean to interrupt. Can you push share your screen? We're not being able to see your presentation, and I know we want to see it.
Okay, hold on. Okay. How about now?
I don't currently see it, but if we can figure it out, no worries. But let's just push forward.
Okay. So we have the standalone web app and the middleware for the brokers and carriers, as well as shippers. We have a mobile app which triggers the automated workflow for the drivers as they pick up and deliver shipments. And all of those shipment events are sent to the smart contract, and all the parties have to sign cryptographically the transaction, as well as other documents. We also have two other tools that help with the workflow automation, like shipment selection, and rate prediction, as well as tour generation that extensively use machine learning, which is one of our core competencies here. And one of the key things that is very exciting for us is the use of blockchain technology. So every shipment has a smart contract associated with it. So we use the smart contract to automate the execution of payment once the carrier has delivered the shipment, and there both parties are also able to see the shipment events in the blockchain as well. We use Ethereum, Rinkeby at this point. We're also using the side chain, which is the RSK that sits on top of Bitcoin. One of the very interesting things that we are working is we're actually developed this, and it's ongoing, is the use of those smart contracts to do three very important things. One is the proof of shipment events. We also do invoiceless payment. That means there's no paper invoice involved, since all the transaction events happen in the platform. That allows us, because those shipment events are in smart contracts, that allows us to create non-fungible tokens. I know NFTs has been quite a buzz these days. So because that invoice is essentially a digital asset that sits in blockchain, we're able to create a non-fungible token. We work with Chainlink and MakerDAO and some other very innovative blockchain companies to make that happen. So once that NFT is created, we can do very innovative things, such as combining several NFTs and creating a new NFT. We're also able to do low-cost borrowing against those NFTs as a collateral. So one last thing that I would mention here is the platform is open to all third-party TMS and fleet management systems if they want to take advantage of these tools. So we also do, because we're able to convert those invoices to an NFT. We, like I mentioned, we're able to borrow against those NFT for almost like a factoring at a much lower cost, because we don't have that much paperwork involved. So I'll just close by saying two things. One is, our goal is very clear. It's the convergence of three things. One is public blockchain, which will take a role of a common ledger for the industry. The second is the smart contract, which works like an executioner, and then the machine learning, which works like a process learner. So obviously the human operator always sits on the top. So our goal is to converge those three technologies to essentially reduce the cost of processing those shipments, whether it's a full truckload or drayage or air or rail freight. So just in closing, we have about 2,500 customers in our list. A majority of them have already moved shipments using the platform, and we're continuously adding more and more carriers and brokers into the system. So with that, I'll close my initial statement. Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, Patrick, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry, you guys just missed the most insightful 30 seconds. The realities of doing these things in 2021, it is constantly laughable events coming out of these things. So bear with me. I appreciate it. What I was making a comment around was how Rajat was talking about the convergence of these three different technologies within the blockchain or DLT space and how it's related to trade. But as we step back and kind of thinking about, the logistics and transportation event, OIT 21, that we've got everyone gathered here today around, it's really, I think, this exciting moment where you see the maturation of a number of these technologies coming together to address pain points that have existed in some cases for decades or longer, centuries, in terms of talking about the challenges of trade documentation. And I often think about kind of three technologies as kind of the trinity of logistics, supply chain, and transportation technologies, and that's sensor tech, broadly IoT, machine learning and AI kind of combined, and blockchain as the plumbing or the infrastructure that's going to allow for the high fidelity transference of those datas between where the data is being captured, where the data is being thrown off, and how to transport that data between different stakeholders in a permissioned way. And so I'm really excited about being able to ask you three professionals about where y'all feel we actually are. As I mentioned in my intro, the audience, in speaking again broadly, has seen the evolution of technology for the ocean, containerized ocean in particular space, from mainframes and EDI and telephone and pen and paper, all the way to these exciting technologies, which for some operators still are a bit over the horizon, but are increasingly seen as core components of global enterprises' development of their modern and next generation technology stacks. So, I guess I will push this out to Isaac first because of y'all's position as a facilitator of this technology. How has the conversation changed over the past 3 years, Isaac? Are the questions that y'all are receiving from C-suite decision makers, are they changing? Are they the same questions? Where do you feel like we are on the spectrum versus 3 years ago?
Thank you, Patrick. Well, we're definitely further along, right? Because there's been a lot of education that's gone on with it. But I would say that every company and every industry is in a different state, and it really depends on where they see the business value coming. So it's still possible to get questions about the technology itself, whereas today, whereas 3 years ago that was predominant, right? 3 years ago we were doing POCs and proving that technology worked. Today we're well beyond this. If anybody's out in the audience, the technology works. There's lots of proof points there. We're now focused on business value, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. But the short answer to your question is it just varies. It varies by company and individual, but there's definitely been a lot of education. So it's more about the value and less about the technology.
Thank you. And Rajat or Jordan, do y'all want to weigh in on that? Both of y'all have also been working in this for an extended period now, and certainly have your own anecdotes about conversations with decision makers. Rajat, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're certainly past the hype cycle, right? So I think that hump was around 2019, 20, and certainly Isaac mentioned the vast amount of education that has happened already. So the executives are now asking about, okay, can we scale these things or not? Right? Is there if when you talk about scaling, it obviously comes with the business value and financial benefits and all that. So now it's on us to prove that the technology not only works, but it also does what we've always been claiming, which is the efficiency gains, and requiring less amount of trust. And I think there was a paper published several years ago about what is the cost of trust, and I think it's about 5% of the GDP. So if you translate that,
billions of dollars.
Exactly.
It's a fantastic piece of research. I know what you're talking about.
So since we've been saying, blockchain will decentralize the trust or reduce the cost of trust, then that's what we need to prove. Can we bring down that from 5% to 4%? And what will that do to the industry in general is where we are right now.
I'd say to add my thoughts on it, we've completely changed even just our terminology in approaching projects. If we're working with a newer company that's starting out technology, we no longer refer to things as a proof of concept, as that's something I think as both my other panelists have highlighted, we're kind of beyond. We consider this a pure proof of value. We know the technology works, we know how it works, we know how it can benefit these companies. And we think the evidence is borne out clearly in the projects. Now it's showing that value so they really understand not just what the technology is doing, but how it can long-term scale and benefit their company inside of their specific use cases there. So that's the important thing that we've really seen on our side.
Can I ask a quick, less than 30-second question to each one of y'all? Do y'all feel that the terminology around this this technology, let's call it blockchain and consortia, is the terminology or the glossary of terms a problem? Does blockchain need a rebrand?
I think I'll go first, I guess. From my perspective, the enterprise side of it, I don't really think so. I think the enterprise side of things is pretty centered where it needs to be. The only problem is the encroachment of kind of the investment coin side, which is, don't get me wrong, has its own merits and there's a lot of strengths there. But when you've got these coins and things that just sound ridiculous to a layman, to a regular person, it kind of bleeds over and can, I don't know, take down the notch of professionalism that the actual enterprise side of blockchain actually is. So I think there's definitely a reckoning between balancing the guy on the internet that's making a coin for fun and the actual real world business applications that we're applying to benefit companies around the world.
One of my favorite commentators within this space broadly is Joe Weisenthal at Bloomberg, and talking about the Coinbase IPO over the past week or direct listing. He brought up the fact that he actually created his own coin about 2 years ago. And if he had just listed it on one of these, DeFi platforms, what would be the market cap of that coin that he could be extracting out on one of these DeFi platforms and, yield farming. So I totally get that point. Rajat, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, so I wouldn't change the name, right? It is what it is. But I think there's a bit of a confusion between the whole jargon of DLT versus blockchain. Are they the same or are they different? And people have different views, one for the other. But I don't think it's important for practitioners like me. But what is also important is the fact that people are now more and more okay with the idea of cryptocurrency in general and tokens and as well. You won't believe it that we had a couple of carriers call us and ask that, hey, can I get paid in Bitcoin? It's like, no, not yet. And we have carriers who are familiar with blockchain technology, because there's what we're seeing in the past couple of years is more and more younger generation is taking over the industry, and they're familiar with all the new technologies, including blockchain, and they're not intimidated by it. The way the previous generation probably is. So we're seeing that change.
No.
Right.
Okay. Isaac, what about you?
I agree with both of them. I don't think it needs a new dictionary of terms. I'm not even sure how you would do that. You might make it even more confusing. But I do think it's all starts with understanding all the variations we're talking about. Public, private, hybrid, consortiums, all of those things. And it's really education and understanding where the value is going to come from once you understand what the technology can do.
Awesome. So, we're bumping up against time. We've got about 5 minutes left. Maritime innovation broadly and blockchain certainly seem like a great match. The unprecedented nature of the global challenges related to COVID over the past 14 months have brought about an unprecedented visibility to the supply chain visibility challenges that affect global trade. I think the supply chain visibility used to be a term that was so niche, and everyone from their couches really started to experience the need for supply chain visibility when they started to run into consumer challenges, whether it was toilet paper or whether it's around PPE. And now we're talking about the distribution challenges associated to the vaccine rollouts. Do y'all feel like the United States is leading the charge? Do you feel like the United States is falling behind? We're seeing some really exciting projects in Singapore and the Netherlands, where they're leveraging the United Nations Commission on International Trade Laws, this new model law around the adoption of electronic tools for trade transactions. Is the U.S. falling behind against these other competitors? China seems to certainly be taking a proactive stance on this technology. What would you recommend if you guys had the ear of regulators and port authority officials to say, this is what we really need to do to allow for the United States to be the leader in this space? Jordan, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Broadly speaking, from my experience, I would probably say that the United States as a whole is a little bit behind. I see a lot more going on from the government, the regulatory side of things, in the EU, in other areas of the world, where the United States is still trying to figure out what's a security versus what's a token in some aspects. Although I do think that there's some catching up and advancement, and there are, I would like to think, several companies well represented here that are really pushing the right buttons to move things forward. Overall, I would definitely say that the U.S. has some catching up to do in that adoption side. And if I could recommend one thing to a lot of the regulatory bodies, or really, I think a lot of this would come down to port authorities and the various ports that are involved, is it's time to move past the talking stage and start finding ways to implement this technology, even if in a small bit right now, to see where that value really is. Because the sooner we can get the broader scope of the logistics industry, the infrastructure in the United States kind of on board, the faster we can integrate into networks like Trust Your Supplier and what Raj is doing, and obviously what we're doing here at Chango. I think that really accelerates not just the use for individuals, those port or the authorities, but the global supply chain itself, accelerating a lot of the inefficiencies that we currently see.
Great takeaway, Jordan. Rajat, at Dexfreight, you all have been working with port authority communities or port community systems in different countries, different jurisdictions. What's your take on it?
I'm going to disagree a little bit on that. In terms of the technology development itself, I think US has the most number of developers contributing to the overall ecosystem. Yes, from the regulatory side about token issuance, we're certainly behind, and there's some light at the end of the tunnel. We saw the opinion piece from one of the commissioners that just came out about allowing token issuance with the time constraint. That's certainly interesting. In terms of actual deployment at the enterprise level, I mean, it's still, you have to understand that there are regulatory issues related to antitrust, and that keeps a lot of these big companies, Fortune 500, 100 companies and publicly traded companies, to be a little bit more careful as to what data can be shared and what data cannot be shared. and what goes into the blockchain and what doesn't go into the blockchain. So they have to be a little more careful compared to, let's say, perhaps in Asian countries, right, where the antitrust may not be viewed so strongly. So there's also, Europe is very heavy on the GDPR, and there's also questions about identity. There's some projects that coming out of Europe.
I'm getting the time hook. So
okay, sorry.
Let me jump to Isaac real quick. Isaac, let's get your feedback.
Sure. I think both Jordan and Rajat are right. Public, we are not the leaders in the U.S. Private, I'd say we are, if not the leaders, we are right up there. But I do think the government's trying to come. There's definitely been a lot in the DeFi world and the Treasury looking at these things. But I don't think we're leading in that area. But hopefully we can play catch up and not come back to be leadership on the public sector as well.
So what I'm hearing is the promise and the foundation exist. We'll have to see how we execute against it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you all so much for this exciting discussion. We got a number of questions which we weren't able to get to. I'm going to encourage the panelists to try to address those offline, and we're going to move forward with the day's events. There's a lot more in store. Look forward to hearing all these insights, and thanks everybody for tuning in with us.